Hey, thanks for joining us for another episode of Stories Inside the Man Cave. The countdown to 100. We are 4 away after today. And today's guest is one guy that I truly admired him as an athlete, admire him as a person, and he is, in particular, his path to establishing a brand that he has developed in the great city, Austin, Texas, and he's a Longhorn for life. Episode 96, let's ride.
Wake your ass up
or take a damn nap.
And we're the three best friends that anybody could have.
It's time.
Sean, you were twerking. That's gonna happen.
Murph, don't be a dick all your life.
It's one of the more fun podcasts I've ever done.
Hey, I tell you what, if you're not talking about sports in the man cave, I bet not say you not a bed.
That's it.
First down, OU. Now Hibble. Intercepted. Nothing but green real estate. Hibble will come over on Favors. Touchdown, Texas. He can't get there.
Hey, a flashback to God bless, man. Rod, it's been 20 years. 20
Man,
years.
it's been a long time. I feel it every day too. I feel it every day at 20 years.
You feel it from the Sooners or just the years that have compiled on your body?
I feel a little bit of both, honestly. Yeah, especially after this year's Texas OU game. But yeah, man, it's good to be here, though. I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate you guys.
Absolutely, man. There is so much to talk about when you mention Rod Babers. And one thing that I have been excited to bring you on here and experience the Man Cave, the new look that you get to unveil here for you.
Hey, it looks fantastic.
We waited for you to unveil it.
Hey, either way, man, whether you did it for me or whether y'all just did it for the upgrade, it looks good. That's all that matters.
Hey, Beyonce would be proud right now. We upgraded, baby.
Upgrade you.
Hey, real quick, just a big shout out to our sponsors that none of this would be possible. Jim Saxton State Farm Insurance Agency and Cosmic Coffee and Beer Garden on the south side. Regular coffee, boozy coffee, live music, food trucks, a huge outdoor space, which really gets the feel of old Austin. And it's you guys get a chance to go down there, tell them that the Man Cave Boys sent you to Paulo Vasey and Cosmic Coffee. Now, Rod Babers, we know you as the former Longhorn and the incredible talent at the Horn 104.9 FM, but how did this all start? Did you see visions of the modern day Rod Babers, who Rod is today?
Oh, no way. Yeah. I mean, I guess God always has a plan, right? And he laughs at our plans. But I got to tell you, I did not see myself in this position when I started doing sports radio, probably back in 2012, I believe was maybe the first year that I got into it. Around that time, well, actually, I take that back. Before then, I take that back. Around 2000, maybe 2009, I probably got into it.
Yeah.
I started doing maybe sideline work and some other television work later on, but probably around 2009, I got into it. I wasn't being paid, actually. I just got into it because
I've been that route before.
Yeah, I was asked by a friend, my man Chip Brown, who did a show with Sean Adams back in the day. He asked me to sit in with him, just to kind of hang out when Sean was out doing stuff. And I sat in with my man Chip Brown, had a good time. And he said, man, you ever thought about doing this? And I said, not really. I hadn't really thought about it. And I was actually at the time going back to school because I was done with my NFL career. It had set in that the NFL was done for me. It was over. And I was probably, late 20s at the time, approaching 30 at the time. And probably wasn't ready for that reality. So I went back to school. And while I was going back to school, I kept doing shows, just whenever Sean Adams was out and then whenever Chip was out. And then I got offered a job over at the Zone. AM 1300 to Zone. At the time, they were at ESPN. I forget exactly what it was back then, but it was ESPN at that time. And then I went over and worked for the Zone officially. Actually got a job that was paying me some money, not a ton, but enough where I can justify at least going to work. And it was a great experience, man. And I grinded on it. I started to really, really enjoy it. And I started to really kind of gain my own voice in the kind of sports entertainment market here in Austin. And he's been really kind to me. The fans have been really good to me. As you know, this is a great town. And
Very
the
much so.
Longhorns provide you with a lot of content to talk about. So we've been going now probably, going on 12 years or something like that of being in sports radio and sports entertainment. And it's a blessing. I mean, most people can't say they can do this for a living. I watch sports for a living and talk about it for a living. I assume my mom always says, one day you got to get a real job, boy. And one day maybe, one day maybe. I mean, I've been a professional athlete, and after that, I've talked sports for a living. So one day maybe I got to get a real job. But so far, I've been really lucky.
Man, it's but you know what? I think there's always this predetermined plan. It's just a matter of us taking the right path to get to that road where we belong, the path. And if you could go back or maybe talk to the Rod Babers at Houston Lamar High School and the people that you grew up with, and when you see these young people now, what would you tell them? Obviously have your athletic goals, but what would you tell them? Because every individual's path is unique and different.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say find out what you're blessed with, what you're good at, because you're good at something. I don't know what it is. Everybody's got their own gifts. God has a different plan for everybody, but you're good at something. It may not be athletic ability. It may not be your blessing, right? I could run fast and I could talk fast. I made careers out of them both. Those have kind of been, those are my gifts, right? My mom always said, hey, you'd been a lawyer if you weren't, into sports radio, because you can talk. Sometimes you can talk circles or even around yourself, right? So I think for young people, find out what you're good at. You got time for that. And you got time to do it, right? And you'll figure that out. Once you do, work hard. You know what I mean? And not just the 9 to 5, right? Not just clocking in, not just, hey, I'm gonna go to class, and during class I'm gonna work hard, and then I'll just do all the assignments. No, you got to put in the extra work. You got to stay after practice. You got to come in early before practice. That's what I did. So I can only give people, words of wisdom based on my experience. I found out I was fast. I wasn't a great athlete, actually. I was just fast. And I wanted to be a really good athlete. And once I got to, Houston Lamar, and once I got to Texas, I started playing with some great athletes. But I was really fast. And that actually helps you in football. Like, you can work around that. As you guys know, I didn't have great hands. Right? Couldn't catch the football really well. But I did a honest analysis of what I was good at in football. I was fast. And I was good at playing man-to-man defense. Those were my two things I was really good at. So I decided to corner the market on those things, right? I just wanted to make sure that my speed was as, refined and as cultivated as I could make it. And also my man-to-man coverage skills. And in football, that's what really carried the day for me. That's what got me to the NFL. Didn't work out the way I thought, dealt with a ton of injuries. I mean, that's the reality of being a football player. But if I give advice to young people, I always tell them, find out what you're good at. It's something. I know it may be, really tough to be able to define that early on, but you'll figure it out. Once you figure out what that is, you can make a career out of it. You really can, if you want to, if that's what you want to do. And then I always tell people that, if you're really passionate about something, you got to have passion, because that's what's going to drive you to work hard when nobody's watching you. That's what's going to drive you to put in the extra time, to put in the extra work, to sacrifice for what it takes, because you're going to have to sacrifice. You can't have, you can't accomplish your dreams. You can't have the things you want in life if you don't sacrifice for them. I don't know what that sacrifice is going to be. Could be time, could be money at first. All right. You got to work for the pennies at first, whatever it may be, but you got to sacrifice. So I know that's a lot, but figure out what you're good at, work hard, work harder than everybody else. Try your best. Have the passion. Make sure you got a ton of it. And, after that, I'll just tell people, like, just make sure that, you put in the work. That's the most important thing.
And you put in the work, and now you evolve to this other portion of your life post-football successfully. You're a married man now. Rod Babers is off the market.
Man.
But
exactly.
that's played a role in your growth, right?
Yeah, I'm 40 years old, man, and I'm married for the first time, so I got a lot of growth. It's gonna be every day. My wife reminds me that I got a lot of growth. Got a lot of growth to come. Got a lot of growing to do. I'm reminded constantly. Yes.
Hey, we're grown men, Rod, and I tell every woman in my life that we will never grow up ever.
Not really.
In
Yeah, she
every
keeps
aspect,
waiting.
we will. It's not possible.
No, she's right. You're right about that, man. Because she keeps telling me, hey, I can't believe you did this. I'm like, what do you mean? I can't believe I did this. You're married to it now. This is what it is, right?
Yeah.
No matter what it is, and you're right. It's always something pretty childish. Whether it be me getting really mad about the Longhorns losing,
Yeah.
and telling her I need some time. I need some time. You need some time because the Longhorns lost. Yeah, babe. I just need a little time because I'm in a real bad mood now, and I know that I don't want to take that out on anybody I care about or love. So give me about 20, 30 minutes to sit here and kind of yell at the television screen for a while, and then I'm ready to go. That is childish. I agree. I should be able to control myself as an adult this time, but it's tough for me. I got a special emotional connection to the Horns, so when they lose, I need some time. I just need a little time.
We need a little solitude quite a bit. 3 times. All the games needed some solitude, but we'll get on that on segment 2. But before we wrap up this segment 1, Rod, the Jim Saxon State Farm man cave story, there's been some truly classic, hilarious, legendary man cave stories from our guest. And for you, it could be anything that happened in the locker room that you can share. A moment out with your guys here in Austin with the Longhorns, or something between you and your wife, or it's a story that you love to tell.
Interesting.
Periodically.
Oh man cave stories. Okay, well, I obviously it's always been my dream to play in the NFL.
Right.
And when one of the teams I played for, because I wasn't very good, so I hopped around from team to team. And I played for the Denver Broncos at one time. This was when Jerry Rice was there.
Oh my goodness!
Towards the end of Jerry Rice's career, I mean, and Jerry, he's been around with so many different players. He probably doesn't even remember it. But I used to stalk Jerry Rice a little bit because I mean, it's Jerry freaking Rice. It was the GOAT. I got a chance at practice. Because at the time, Jerry Rice would sometimes run with the second and third team because Jerry Rice he's an old man, right? He's got a receding hairline and everything, right? And I'd end up going up with Jerry Rice in practice, in awe, of course, of Jerry Rice. I don't know how old he was at the time, probably approaching 40, and still out there, running the 6 route and making Rod B turn his hips too early and still getting me. You know what I mean? But he was. It was great just to learn from Jerry Rice. So what I would do was to get my time with Jerry. Jerry loved to hang out in the steam room, right? And he'd stay in there probably longer than most. He just kind of hang out in there and kick it a little bit. I used to always make sure that I used to watch Jerry. When Jerry went to the steam room, young Rod B would head to the steam room too. You know what I mean? Just to make because I probably got 2-3 minutes of conversation with Jerry all together, all the times that I stalked him into the steam room, but it was worth it. That's something I'm cool with admitting now that I stalked Jerry Rice a little bit into the steam room because I just wanted my time with the GOAT. And it might have been inappropriate, but still, I wanted my individual time with the GOAT. And I got a chance to talk to Jerry Rice for a little bit. The little cup of coffee I spent with the Denver Broncos. And I did that a few times actually. And I don't think Jerry was who I am, but it was fun.
I bet he does. He's like, man,
for me, it meant a lot. For Jerry, it didn't mean a damn thing. But he was cool. Like, he was gracious with his time. And, he never big timed me. Yeah. He would talk to a young buck like myself who really, a jabroni in the league. Right. So, that was fun. I mean, I still, to this day now, I appreciate those moments. Back then, I'm still on the grind. I'm just trying to make it. Yeah. So you don't appreciate those little cool moments. But now, retrospectively, now that I'm done, I'm an old man myself. It's like, man, actually, I tell people I was hanging out with Jerry Rice and teaming with the GOAT. Even though an inappropriate story like that, people think it's cool. They're like, yeah, it's a cool story, man. So, thank you. Yes,
hey, it's one of those stories where you're half naked with another man in a room, and it's acceptable. It's okay.
Hey, you know what? I was doing my best to make sure that I was half naked in that room with Jerry Rice. I timed it out every time. And you know what? I'm happy about it. I brag about it to this day.
I would too. Hall of Famer. You're keeping yourself lean. Sage words of advice.
You know what I mean? Exactly.
Gain. See?
I'm just looking for a little nugget of wisdom, whatever it may be. I'm just trying to grind. I'm trying to, I think that was the Broncos were my that might have been my 4th or 5th team at the time. And I was on my way out the league pretty much if I didn't stick to one roster, it's sooner rather than later. And the Broncos were one of those teams that gave me a shot and had a good time there. And turns out Jerry Rice was a teammate, man. That's great. Now looking back, that was one of the best times that I had in the league. And I didn't have many good times.
Yeah, that's one I have not heard that in the steam room. And that's a classic story with a Hall of Famer and someone who's actually one of the most brilliant people who ever played the game.
He is.
Then you gain just through osmosis being next to the guy.
It's coming out of his pores. I wanted to get into my pores. We're in there hanging out, that kind of stuff. No, but he was, that Jerry Rice ended up being a wedding crasher too, right? Famously he's a wedding crasher. You can go Google
I didn't know
that.
that.
He crashes a lot of weddings. It's like
does he really?
I don't know. Yeah, you can go Google it. That Jerry Rice has crashed multiple weddings. I think he did it because I think he was single at the time. I think he had gotten divorced. I think he was doing it for the same reason that wedding crashers were doing it. If Jerry Rice crashes your wedding, every dude is going to let him hang out and will introduce him to every single woman at the wedding. Hey, this is Jerry Rice? Jerry Rice. This is Jerry Rice.
Church, weddings, and bachelor parties to Vegas. Those are always the great art to Austin, Texas now, because most of the bachelor parties are in Austin, Texas.
You're right about that. Yeah, more and more bachelor. My brother had his bachelor party in Austin. Yeah. Yes, you're right.
It's not a bad. It's a destination now.
No question.
It is. And man, those types of stories. That's the Rod B story that I was looking for, hoping to hear. And we're going to take a quick break. And when we return, one of the things I look forward to whenever I'm able to listen to the Horn are his knowledge of the statistical proof of why things happen in college football. And that's coming up on this other side of the short break. For all of your insurance needs, look no further than our primary sponsor, Jim Saxton State Farm Insurance Agency. The ATX OG has been insuring Austin for over 3 decades. And get this, Jim Saxton is a Longhorn legacy. He is the son of the late, great James Saxton, who was a Heisman finalist. Be sure to give him a call, or better yet, visit his website, saxtoninsurance.com, and tell him that the stories inside the Man Cave Boys recommended you. All right, segment 2 with the Rod Babers. Hey, Rod, before we continue, we're going to talk about the Texas Longhorns, something you know inside and out, and you have great knowledge every week with you guys on the Horn. But what's the best way for someone to interact with you on social media if they want to, experience the knowledge bombs that you drop quite often that are quite impressive?
I appreciate that, brother. That means a lot. You just follow me on Twitter at Rod Babers, in Twitter at RODBABERS. I do my best to try to interact, but it's, sometimes it's a little tough, as adulting gets in the way.
Adulting.
I usually try to drop a lot of my stats on there. And also, check out, of course, the Horn from 3 to 7 if you get a chance on there, RBKD. And that's the best way too. And if you can't catch that, go to hornfm.com. They got a podcast up there with all the shows or podcasts. If you miss any part of the show, you can catch it there too. And I do a podcast, my man Jeff Howe from Horn 24/7, Matt Butler, called Longhorn Blitz. We've been doing it for years, and we just talk Texas football on there, and it's been pretty fun to do it. So a lot of different ways trying to get the knowledge out there. But yeah, man, I mean it's been a lot of fun. and I've been now on this beat, I guess, officially, because I guess I feel like I'm a member of the media now for more than 10 years. And I've kind of built up my own database. You know how it is. You've been keeping track of notes and stats and nuggets. And now I just have this. And my woman hates it because it's mostly just, I got it in this form. Look at that. Look at this.
That represents my life.
Yeah, exactly. And she hates it. And so I'm trying to do my best as a good husband to organize it, shred some stuff. That's going to be that's like Texas football. That's a work in progress, as I tell them. I'm a work in progress. So
we all are.
So that's the best way to keep up with it. But I try my best, man, to get the knowledge out there. I just want the fans to get the how I used to prepare for a game. Right? That's what I do. I give them almost my own preparation and game plan and how I would go into a game. And I was huge into film study. Coach Akina got me addicted to it. And so that was where I gained a ton of my football acumen and where I gained my advantage, because physically, of course I had some physical attributes, but I wasn't a Michael Huff or Cedric Griffin or Michael Griffin or Nathan Basher. Them dudes were some freaks. Trust me, I played with them. They were freaks. I thought I was gifted athletically until I played with them dudes, and I was like, okay. And they were all behind me, which honestly, the truth is, it pushed me to be a really good player. I think it's part of what Texas is missing right now. Honestly, to kind of get into discussion is, dude, when I could not afford to make a mental mistake. That's why I got obsessed with film. I could not, and Coach Akina and we saw the world very much the same, the football world. And he loved my preparation and my game study. I always made sure I knew what everybody on the field was doing. And that's what kept me from having Nathan Basher take my job, or Michael Huff or Cedric Griffin, or one of those great DBs that were way better than I was. And also I knew that accountability, right? If I didn't execute my assignment and I got beat continuously on the field and didn't make plays, they were going to put one of those young bucks in, and those young bucks were ready. They were hungry. So the only reason I could stay a starter for 3 years is honestly because I was scared to death of Nathan Basher taking my job and Michael Huff taking my job and Cedric Griffin, because I knew how good they were. So I knew I'm staying later than Michael Huff and Cedric Griffin and Nathan Basher. I'm going to stay later. I'm going to get there earlier. All right. I'm going to watch more film. And I got to make sure that I execute and that I don't have bad practice, because Coach Akina might go, yeah, you know what? Let's put that Huff kid. Let's put that Huff kid out there. He's damn good. You damn right he's good. He ain't taking my spot though. You gotta wait your turn, young bud. And I think honestly, they are missing that, right? When you get beat out there back in my day, you got benched because that was a young, hungry, cold-blooded cat right behind you. And that was the case for, I don't know, probably 8-9 years on the 40 acres. You don't really have that now. And to me, there's people saying, Texas isn't talented. No, they're talented. They just don't have that kind of talent. That talent that threatened every player, that threatened every starter every day. So you feared for your job and you knew you had to ball out, because if you did not, then they had somebody better. They don't necessarily have anybody better right now.
That's a good point.
They're not pushed in that regard.
And that's the point I've had, and I'm glad we're talking about this, because I've had multiple discussions. There's a lot of passionate Texas fans, you know that, and it's always been that way. A lot of people want overnight change, and that's never going to change here. That I finally accepted that's not going to change. People here believe when a new head coach starts that season should be a championship year. When Mack Brown started, didn't start out great, but 1-2, and it all started to gel. Okay, you were a member of one of the first recruiting classes, really got it going, followed by, as you mentioned, other elite classes. Right now, I think it's systemic. And before we comment on that, Sark was asked about that this week by your guy, Jeff Howe.
Yep.
Is this systemic? And that's what I believe it is. And he uses an analogy kind of similar to Mack Brown's the BB's in the box.
Just a couple analogies. It's like you get a gift, right? And you open up that gift and you open it up and it's a sleeve of, it's a box of golf balls. And then you open up that box and then there's the sleeves of the golf balls. And then you open up that sleeve and it's not actually that brand of the golf ball that you thought you were going to get. And so sometimes you have to drill down, you have to peel back the layers to find out, what potential issues you have, and then you address them as they present themselves. Sometimes we have different issues than maybe what were before. Sometimes some of those issues never show themselves back up, and sometimes they don't show up till we're a little further down the road, and that's our job as coaches to address them and continue to move forward. So, nothing that we've ever done since I've gotten here has been, lay blame on what has ever happened before.
Rod,
It's interesting.
I found that not profound, but Sark has never been one to avoid subject so far. I think he addresses it and said, "This is how we'll handle it." Am I wrong to think that, yes, he knows the depth is not there? We're trying to do our best with what we have because there are talented guys, as you mentioned, on that roster.
Yeah, I totally agree. He's scheming around the deficiencies at this time, right? He's scheming around the talent deficit, which is the offensive line. I think most glaringly right now for Texas does have a talent deficit there. And nothing against the young men, but as a unit, they're not performing at a really high level. And honestly, the truth is, going back to you talking about systemic issues, Texas has had offensive line issues for a decade. Right? There was some headway made. I think there was some progress later in Tom Herman's tenure, but still the offensive line is an issue. So that goes back to systemic issues. So for Sark, he's got a scheme around it. I think he's actually done a pretty good job scheming around the offensive line. I mean, going into that Oklahoma State game, you got to talk about a top 5 offense in the country, top 10 in a lot of efficiency metrics. But when it matters most, of course, down the stretch, that offense struggled, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But I do think that, Sark's doing a good job. I think on defense, PK's now he's got to give these players a schematic advantage, right? When I played, it's strange enough, the talent level was so high at one point for Mack Brown. They didn't really need a schematic advantage. It helped to have one. When I was here at Texas, we played mostly man-to-man. Now, we mixed in some zone coverages here and there, but mostly we just played man-to-man. Yeah. We had the dogs to do it. Right? When you got guys, like Quentin Jammer out there and Nathan Basher out there and myself and, Derek Johnson and, you got the dogs to do it. Mm-hmm. At this time, they don't have those types of players, right? That's what LSU plays man-to-man a ton, and the Ohio States of the world would play man-to-man a lot. But right now, you have to give these players a schematic advantage. I think offensively, that's the same thing that Sark has to provide, a schematic advantage for these guys, just until you can build up the talented depth on the roster. Well, you not only have the frontline guys, but when you lose a Jordan Whittington, it doesn't decimate you on your third down passing game and your RPO game, which in the Oklahoma State game, no Jordan Whittington, what suffered? Third down passing, RPO game, right? Boom. It naturally fits. So that's what happens. You'll lose certain elements of your offense just because guys end up getting hurt or because guys are hobbled or whatever. That's because you don't have the talented depth that you need on the roster just yet. But I think Sark's going to get there. It's just recruiting his type of guys. He's got to develop them. All that's going to take, unfortunately, some time. Right now, they don't have that. And they don't have enough of a schematic advantage to win games against, seems like Oklahoma State and teams like Oklahoma. They don't right now. And that's on Sark too. Sark's he as a coach also needs to evolve. I don't think we're seeing his evolution adjusting, basically countering the opposing coach's adjustments. His opening script, first half of games, is amazing. We all agree. But football, he's winning the battle of preparation and game planning, but he's losing the battle of adjustments, which means he's losing the game.
No, that's a fabulous point. And I think it's, without me actually knowing and without me actually asking, I think it's fairly obvious, without saying this is fact, to me, that there is a list of plays. I was 15 plays scripted, something like that. Because
he says it's 20 to 25, I believe is what Chip Brown reported now.
Is that okay?
He is somewhere between 20 and 25 scripted plays for him.
I mean, that's a beautiful thing because he knows his team, that they have. That's what we're going to do, and we're going to run those plays well. But as you mentioned, the second half adjustments are a problem right now, and numbers, the stats, they don't lie. That is one thing that I love about you on your show. You deliver some information that the common fan or even the educated fan are not aware of. If you were to distribute or deliver two statistical pieces of information involving percentages that not alarming, but maybe surprising about this Texas team, which is 4-3 and still in that Big 12 race for those top two positions, but they don't have the tiebreaker against OU and OSU, who happen to be at the top.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because I still think, if everything, they win the rest of their games, they got a shot at the Big 12 title. But with the way this team is playing, with the way Baylor's playing now, right? Baylor's a really good team. Baylor's built, and kind of getting into a couple of stats, right? Baylor is built to exploit a lot of Texas's glaring weaknesses. Let's take the rush defense, right? The rush defense for Texas has been bad, hasn't been great. They gave up 145 yards rushing in the fourth quarter to Oklahoma State. And Texas was outgained, of course, 170-1 in the fourth quarter Oklahoma State game. But it was the rush defense. That was the dam that broke through. Oklahoma State wanted to run the ball. That's their identity. Same thing with Baylor. Baylor wants to run the football. They run what we call the wide zone, which is a variation of the outside zone, which is a play that has given Texas issues. When you want to attack Texas in the running game, you attack the edges. Right, you attack those outside edges right off tackle, and take the Arkansas game. The Arkansas game, they ran the outside zone play a ton. Around 23% of their plays offensively were the outside zone. They averaged 11 yards per rush on just that running play alone, on the outside zone running play. Oklahoma State had a lot of success with it too. The thing about Baylor, it is their bread and butter. They layer their entire offense around that wide zone. Jeff Grimes came from BYU. He was the offensive coordinator there when Zach Wilson was there, and they were top 5 offense in the country. They like to run the outside zone. Not the different what Sean McVay does. And then they'll build a bootleg game off of the outside zone, the waggle concepts and all that. But Texas has to fortify the edges going up against Baylor. That's one of the things they're going to have to do in this game. Losing Jacoby Jones did not help. You lost your starting defensive end, probably the most stout defensive end you have against the run. Him and Ray
He was
Thorne.
playing so well.
He was playing really well. So that is something that concerns me going into this game. And, of course, the second half, you go to on the offensive side of the ball, it is the second half meltdowns for Texas. The last 6 offensive drives for Texas in that Oklahoma State game, 4 3-and-outs. You had 1 turnover on downs, and you had the 1 interception. So 17 total plays, I believe, you end up having there, where you amounts to nothing on offense. And then, of course, the defense is exhausted, so the dam breaks. But here's what I found, because what I love about Sarkisian's offense is he used what I call a lot of cheat codes. And what I mean by cheat codes is they are things that gives the offense an advantage. Pre-snap motion is a cheat code. Using bunch formations is a cheat code, gives receivers an easier release, right? You can't bump and run them. You can't be physical at the line of scrimmage with them. You can't reroute them as easy. I think certain formations, empty formation, I think is kind of a cheat code for Texas. I'll get into that a little bit later on, but there are certain formations, certain personnel packages, certain elemental concepts you can use that they'll just give you a natural advantage. The thing about Steve Sarkisian that's great, he puts a ton of them, inundates his plays with them all at the same time. So not just one concept to give him you an advantage. He's going to put 4 or 5 of them in the same play. And that's what it almost overstimulates the defense. And that's why he's able to exploit and isolate matchups. Like, man, how'd the guy end up wide open? Well, he gave the defense 4 or 5 different threats to worry about. So what I recognize is pre-snap motion, pre-snap shifts in motion, which Steve Sarkisian loves it. In this game versus Oklahoma State, he had more pre-snap motions and shifts, a higher rate than any game so far this year. 76% of his offensive plays, he used pre-snap motions and shifts, which is great. That's awesome. But in the second half, the rate drops to 54%. In those last 17 plays where you had your 6 offensive drives, the 4 3-and-outs, the 1 turnover on downs, and the interception, your pre-snap motion rate drops to 41%. So to me, it's like, okay, but it's only a small thing. But when you're looking for a spark for your offense, why use less cheat codes when you should use more? Take empty formation. Texas is deadly out of empty formation. They have been ever since last year, even with Sam Mellinger there. I clocked it. Texas right now as a team averaging 10 yards per play out of empty formation. Remember that 58-yard deep ball to Marcus Washington?
Yeah.
Out of empty formation. It was the only deep ball Texas actually attempted in that game, and only one they completed in that game versus Oklahoma State. So if Texas ran more empty formation, they have more success, right? At least the sample tells you that over time. Where Texas ran 4 plays out of empty in that game, 4 plays and only 1 empty formation in the second half. Why not run more empty instead of less, right? When you want to spark the offense. Let's take bunch formations. Bunch formations, it gives defensive backs fits like myself because I can't bump and run a bunch formation. Bunch formation. I gotta play it in levels. I gotta play off because I don't know where the wide receivers are releasing. They can do those starburst releases, and it gives them a freer release, a little cheat code for the wide receivers. Well, Sark used bunch formations 27% of the time throughout the entire game, right? The entire game versus Oklahoma State, which is a good number, pretty good high, the highest rate he's had so far this year. But that number drops to 17% on the last 6 drives when you have the 4 3-and-outs, the interception, and you have the turnover on downs. So once again, instead of less bunch formations, how about more bunch formations? Because that seems to spark your offense. You know, I'm obsessed with 2-back sets, right? I love that Texas has a lot of 2-backs. I've been preaching for Texas to run 2-backs even when Tom Herman was here. And right now, Texas is averaging more yards per play out of 2-back sets than they are actually when they have their average offense, right? They're averaging almost 7 yards per play out of their, actually 7.2 yards per play out of 2-back sets. Well, in that game, they ran 9 plays out of 2-back sets in that game, and they only ran 2 2-back set plays in the second half. So if you're more successful running 2-back sets, you would think you would do more of that, not less of it, when your offense needs a spark. So my advice for Sark, and I shouldn't be giving advice to Sark because Sark knows what the hell he's doing, but based on the numbers that I'm looking at, I don't know if it's a chicken or the egg, right? I don't know if he's using less cheat codes and then that's causing the offense to stall, or the offense is stalling because he's using less cheat codes. I'm not sure, but either way, it's less of it is happening, right? Less of the things that give you an advantage are happening when your offense is struggling. So if I was him, I would try to up those rates of all of those little things that seem to give you an advantage, compound them, and that will obviously give you more of an exponential advantage in those times.
That's what's so bizarre, though. The second half, and he's a first-year coach here. He's been around offensive. He's a progressive offensive mind.
No,
obviously national championship at Alabama, played quarterback at a high level. Mike, what I think every Texas fan is trying to figure out, or just college football purist period who watches Texas, why such a drastic difference, not only in play calling, but adjustment in those second halves? That's something I can't answer. I mean, what is your opinion from your educated point of view?
If I would give any suggestion to Sark about his play calling, because I've watched a ton of Sark film all the way back from his Washington days and his days at Bama. And I think Sark, this is how I'm just psychoanalyzing Sark, right? Coming into the season, I believe Sark, when he was at Bama, and why not, he saw his offensive ideology, his offensive philosophy at its peak, its zenith. That was it. It'll never get better than that for him. Everything worked perfectly. It was one of the greatest offenses in the history of college football. And you had the greatest athletes in the history of college football running that offense, with the greatest head coach in the history of college football overseeing the operation. so it was just, everything was perfect. So when Sark came to Texas, he's thinking to himself, I need everything to work on schedule like it did at Bama. If it does, nobody's going to stop us. And what I think Longhorn fans were trying to preach to Sark when he's coming in, and I think everybody was, you guys too, was that your offense ain't going to work the way it did at Bama here at Texas right now. Right? You ain't got them athletes. You ain't got that O-line, okay? And you ain't got Nick Saban. It's not going to work like that. And I think Sark was a little stubborn. Why not? He's a great coach coming in. And I think that's why he decided, well, I'm going to go with Hudson Card as a starting quarterback. Now, I said Casey Thompson was going to be the starter, and not because Hudson Card was a better quarterback necessarily. Right. It was more about the situation that quarterback was going to find themselves in most of the time. Because in my opinion, because of the offensive line issues, because of sometimes inadequacy at wide receiver at times, you weren't going to be operating on schedule a lot. You were going to be operating off schedule. You just the way it, probably half the time. And remember, even Sarkis talked about that after the Oklahoma game. He said, yeah, the off-schedule plays got us. But I think what Sark doesn't realize is that probably 40% of football is off schedule. I mean, Vince Young runs for the touchdown on USC off schedule. I mean, it's most of it is off schedule. That's just the reality of it, right? And I think when Sark came in here, that Arkansas game was a slap in the face to go, it's not going to be on schedule. This offense is not going to look anything like it did at Bama. Okay.
Rude awakening.
And a brutal, because I think he was thinking, man, this is click it. I'm going to be rolling. Like, no. We've been Longhorn fans have watched this team for too long. We know this team, and we knew it's like that offensive line is not going to allow you to RPO people to death and to play action passing to death. It's just not. It's not going to happen that way. So I think he had the awakening. Like, okay, it's not going to be on schedule. He went with Casey, and then he had the 2 games where Texas didn't even have to punt for the first time in back-to-back games in the history of Texas football. And then I think also Sark, in that sense, got addicted to his game plan and preparation and almost overemphasized that because it worked in Oklahoma game. Remember, his opening script in Oklahoma game was brilliant.
Yeah.
Right? That's what wins him the game. And ultimately, he can't counter the adjustment by the opposing coach. He's losing the battle of adjustments. And if I was going to tell Sark anything just from watching him so far, what he needs to do, I'm a big fan of Marvel movies. I'm sure you are too. What I love about Marvel movies, they put those Easter eggs in the movies, right? So they're foreshadowing things to come. When I watch Sark's offense, I never see Easter eggs. I never see him setting up the opponent for the second half. Here's an example. Casey Dunn, Oklahoma State offensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
You remember Oklahoma State keeps running the speed option? They keep running the speed option in that game. It doesn't get any yards. It gains like 1 yard, gains like 2 yards, gains like 3 yards. They keep running the speed option. And then late in the second half, they run the speed option reverse. Popped it. And then you realize they weren't running the speed option to get any real yards. They were running the speed option to set Texas up for the speed option reverse later on. It was an Easter egg they were planting. They were just planting that. So you can almost reap what you sow early on. You can reap, you can reap it later. And I don't think you're seeing enough of that from Sark. So I think within this brilliant opening script that he has, these brilliant 20 to 25 plays in that first half, he needs to start planting little seeds. One of them could have been the deep ball. Texas threw one pass 20 yards or more down the field. It was a 58-yard reception to Marcus Washington. He was in the slot, by the way, empty formation. All right. So maybe a little bit more of that. So that was the only one he threw. So think about late in that game when Oklahoma State on 3rd and 6 and 3rd and 9, they're mugging the line of scrimmage. The corners playing bump and run, linebackers mugging the line of scrimmage, everybody within 3 yards of the line of scrimmage, giving you no space. Oklahoma State, that's what they do. They restrict space. That's all they want to do. All right. They want to take space away. They want to compress everything. And Sark is trying to create space. And what they did later on in that game, they did not respect Texas's speed to stretch them vertical, because why would you? Texas has one game this year where they've actually been successful converting the deep ball, and that was Oklahoma. And in that game versus Oklahoma State, they only threw one. They only completed one. Why defend it? If you're not going to throw it, why the hell am I going to defend it? So they started creeping closer and closer to the line of scrimmage, right? And they even saw it on those third downs. The reason Oklahoma State's the best third down defense in the country last year, because everybody plays right there at the sticks. They did it again in this game. They kept playing right there at the sticks because they're daring you to throw the low percentage deep ball over their head. And you didn't, and you wouldn't. Another thing, if you would have planted a seed of Keelan Robinson, remember earlier in the game, you run that one speed sweep to Keelan Robinson, 25-yard game. He only gets one more other touch. If you stretch them horizontally a couple of more times, I guarantee you Oklahoma State starts widening the edge a little bit. Because they have to respect it. That dude could kill you on the edge. Same thing
100%.
with the deep ball. If you throw it enough, even if you don't complete it, as a DB out there, it plants the seed in a fear in your head, because the one thing you cannot give up as a DB is the deep ball. And you didn't threaten them vertically enough, you didn't threaten them horizontally enough. Those are the seeds you plant, and you can reap those later on in the game, but you did not, and you could not.
The game of chess in college football.
Exactly.
That's how it works. That's how it works, Rod. And that I am smarter. Everybody watching and listening, that's what personally, this is my opinion. This is what I live for. The Babers Nuggets. Love it. and it really does. It condenses the information down to a way which you can communicate to the general public to have a better understanding.
Appreciate that, brother.
Man, I love it. You are welcome. How we like to end things, obviously on a positive note, because we love positivity around here.
That's right.
Hey, man, tell me something good.
Yeah, Hardball Harge's son, DJ, the voice of Tell Me Something Good, sponsored by Cosmic Coffee and Beer Garden. Babers, I have to say, whenever I'm around you or see you, is always something positive or something good. But what's good? Tell me something good right now for you in your life, or maybe in your sphere of the world.
Oh man, God is good. I'm blessed. I just got married. July 31st, got married. We had been dating a while, but I'm an idiot. I should have did it years ago. But it just shows you how blessed I am. Even though I'm an idiot, God continues to bless me, and she is the kindest. She's the kindest person I've ever actually known in person. Like,
that's beautiful.
And yeah, man, that's why I'm happy to be married to her. I'm proud to be married to her. She's a kind soul. We have to stop on the street way too many times to pick up stray dogs and stuff like that. But man, it nourishes my soul to be with her. So I'm happy about that. I'm proud of it. And I heard it gets better from here. That's all I heard. So we'll see. But I heard it gets better from here.
That's what I hear. I've done it once. It just wasn't the right person. That's okay. And it was her birthday this week, wasn't it?
Oh, yes, it was. It was my wife's birthday. Actually, yesterday was her birthday. And we had a good time and hung out. So, yeah, I got to tell you, man, nothing changed. Like, it turns out I've been married for the last 5-6 years. It's the same. And nothing has changed, which I think is a good thing. And I waited, so I wanted to make sure it was the right person. This is my first time being married, and I'm 40 years old. So I wasn't truly even a fan of the concept for most of my life. But I'm a fan of her. And I honestly, she's the reason that I believe in marriage. I believe in her. That's what I do. That's the real deal.
Man, I'm not only happy for you, I'm happy for both of you. And that's the kind of positivity in real life. Tell me something good that I think everyone needs to hear. Your person, where you're supposed to be, it will happen if you just let it ride, and the paths will take you where it belongs. Rod, my Tell Me Something Good is just finally, I see in this community, wherever I am now, people are not afraid to communicate with each other, because COVID took the art of communication away. And now I'm seeing people not being as angry. They're probably staying off Twitter, not being so divisive.
That's the key to not being angry. You got to stay off of Twitter sometimes. Take a break.
It's one extreme. What reality is always somewhere down the middle, in my opinion.
No doubt.
And if I think differently than you, it doesn't matter. And we can still talk.
We can still be friends, even though we disagree. We can agree to disagree without being disagreeable. What happened to those days? What happened to those days, man?
Something happened in the last 5 years, and we won't go into that because someone will be pissed off about that I said that.
That they will. But you keep bringing the positivity, bro. That's what I love about you. That's why anytime you guys need me on, man, I'm on. I love it. This was also soup for the soul, man.
It is. That's what it's all about, my brother. And Rod, it has been a blessing and a pleasure to not only talk Texas football with you, but also learn more about you and have you tell your story as well. And we're going to have you'll be on again, and hopefully we can find something, a little special segment just for Rod Babers.
Hey, man, I love that, brother. I love little special segments, man. That's for sure.
3 to 7 p.m., 104.9 The Horn. You can listen to him on the interwebs too, podcast galore, and follow him on Twitter for the Rod Babers, Hardball Harge, Coach Mo, and Big Mike Murphy of Last Stand Hats, and Rod with the Hook'em. We out.
You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up.